What's up Saab fans around the world, and welcome back to another video. In the last video we did mess around with some of the water hoses around the engine, got that sorted out, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And in today's episode we are going to focus on getting like water lines, oil feed to the turbo on. So we will be working on a lot of AN lines, which is quite exciting. That is something I have never done myself before. So throughout the week I have been doing some small work. You can see that the belt is on, the turbo is in place, but unfortunately I have to take this down again because the exhaust manifold is not fully tight in, it's just screwed on, so I could measure out some stuff before I cut it. But what I have done since the last video is I have installed this tank right here, so now it sits sturdy and won't go anywhere. And you can see that the line is connected to the water pump and everything fits quite nicely. I have actually cheated a little bit. I have started with the first AN line because I just wanted to try it out to see how it works. So that is just one end. We are going to connect the other end to the oil lines down below. And I've got some work done from my buddy Gerard in Kalmar, who helped me out to weld in the cooling fans on the radiator. Because first I thought that I would do like a Haggard solution and use some steel and drill it in, and yeah, it wouldn't have turned out the best. So now he has done some really nice aluminum welding, and now everything sits in place. Very sturdy, very nice. And the shroud around the cooling fans are a must. On my Monte Carlo yellow build I used like a universal slim fan without the shroud, and that didn't work out too well. The car got up to too much heat very quickly. So this will be a great solution. And now we're reusing the OEM Saab parts, so it will just be to connect and everything will work as the car should work from factory. But now I will start with disassembling everything again and fix one of the attachment points down here where I actually made a reinforcement bar for the exhaust manifold. So this has to come off again. I need to adjust the top mounting space right here, and then we could fully reinstall that again, and we could continue with all of the AN lines right here and try to get them connected. So now I have spent like an hour on non-value creating stuff that I have done. Just redid stuff that went a little bit wrong. But it's more important to get everything set up straight and right than to rush through this build. So the exhaust manifold is back on, turbo is back on, the AN line is back on. So now we are going to see where this meets up with this little guy right here. So we're gonna measure this out, then cut it and put on a new AN fitting on this line right here. And when all of these AN lines are done, like these steel braided lines, it would just look so clean. And you can see that the belt is gone also. So I have done some work right here. I have attached the grounding wire and starting to attach all of the wire harness. So the generator is connected, the starter motor is connected. You can see the positive line goes right here. And this is where the battery usually connects. And this cable right here, I think it goes to this fuse box that's behind here, that it normally sits close to. So as you might have suspected, I'm not gonna have the battery in the front. The battery will be located in the trunk. So I will probably reroute this wire either underneath the car or through the car and underneath the floor mat. I think that would be the cleanest. And yeah, the wiring harness is the big challenge for me because I'm really not a fan of electrics and I'm not good at it at all. Like reading schematics and stuff like that is not my strong side, to say the least, but I think I will manage. I kind of recognize all of these connectors and everything. Here we have the connectors for the O2 sensors and a few other stuff, and usually it only connects in one way. And here is the connectors for all of the injectors. So it will be pretty plug and play. The one thing that I have to do is I have to extend this connection right here. Just cut off all of these cables, extend it so it could fit right here or somewhere near at least, because I think in the end this will be located somewhere close to the firewall. But it will not reach over here since the engine is twisted. But if I only relocate that wire and a few of the positive wire from the battery, I think we will be like more or less plug and play. So not a ton of custom stuff when it comes to the electronics, which is very good for me. But yeah, it's all the same as it has been in the other episodes. It's fitting stuff, removing them again. So the generator and the parts right here have been on and off like 5 times or something like that. And the same goes for this. So I'm getting pretty quick on removing stuff and putting them back in, but that's not what this build is about. So now I'm going to try to push this forward and we are going to measure out and start with the AN fitting. So there is a couple of different lines when it comes to AN lines. So this is a steel braided line with a rubber inside, and then you have like nylon braided, and you have a PTFE version that is commonly used for E85. That's what I'm going to use for the fuel lines, but this is an oil line, so this is perfect for this application. So this is a AN4, and I have marked up with a little bit of paint where I want the cut to be, and I make these hoses a little bit longer than they should be because I only have one shot, and these hoses and fittings are very expensive in most cases. So I wrap this a couple of times so I get like a thick wrap with the electrical tape. And the best way to do this is actually to use like a cutter that is for this purpose. But now I don't have a cutter for it, so now I will use an angle grinder to just cut it. But this is not the best way possible because it's really easy to get like dirt into the hose that is very hard to remove, but I will need to flush the system either way, so I will try to make a clean cut as clean as I can. It cuts through pretty easy and it's not the worst. It could be a lot worse, but Then I would take just a screwdriver or something just to take out a little bit of the rubber. Like so. So the fittings are different depending on if you have like PTFE line or standard line. So here you just undo this one right here. Then remove a little bit of the electrical tape because will be too thick to get the line over. So when you have made a cut, you just twist it on and press it on, and now it's hard to get up close and focus, but you will see that there is an edge inside of here before the threads start, and that's where the rubber should be placed against, so you get it fully seated on. And you could just use something to lube up the rubber a little bit. Not too much, just enough so it slides on easily. And then you can start to just thread it on. And here you could just use a piece of tape again, so you will notice if the AN line is being pressed out of the fitting, which you don't want. And we will twist as much as we can by hand before we start to use a wrench. Make sure it sits so you can't pull it out. Really clean. Now it's ready to go back and just install it. You should do anything on these cars, it's just something in the way. So I have fit the turbo with AN fittings everywhere, so we have AN4 for the oil and AN6 connections for the water lines. Not the best of focus, but and when I was about to install the oil return, because you can have AN fittings everywhere, but at some point it gets just too expensive. So I reused one of the original return lines that you have, and I have ordered an extra long silicone hose from DO88. But then it turned out that this was too long, so I started to cut another one right here and try to remake this, but then I figured out why not modify the one that I had that was too long. So I cut away some of the piping, a couple of centimeters, welded it back on, So there is really no pressure on this, it's just oil running back to the oil pan. So now we will throw it in the car again and hope it fits a lot better. That turned out to be a lot better, but you could see that it's so tight. Even though the turbo has a V-band clamp, which is like the slimmest you could get, it's still very close. But the return line that goes right here has a really nice like angle to it, to the block. And we got the oil feed for the turbo right here. You can see it, looks really nice. So now we have to make the water lines, one that goes from this side and one that goes from the other side, both AN6 fittings. So for the oil we have AN4, for the water we have AN6, and one of the lines is going to be going down to the water pump and the other one is going to go on the back side of the cylinder head. So it will sit in this connection right here with a banjo bolt and a banjo fitting. And if you know the original connection, you have also a connection that goes to the throttle body or the intake manifold. So this is a little bit of a special one. You see AN6, then we have an 8mm fitting that I have screwed in, and then we have an M14 banjo bolt. So this will sit like this, and I think it will work really good. Now it's not a real problem. The only lines that I have that's AN6 are PTFE, which is for the fuel system, but we will use them either way, because I know that I have a little bit too much of the lines. So we will use this, and these fittings are actually a little bit different, so I will show you that in a second also. So now I'm going to assemble and install the other type of line. So this is a PTFE line. So you can see it's like more of a Teflon or a plastic pipe inside of the steel braiding compared to this rubber one. So the installation is a little bit different, and also the AN fittings is a little bit different. You pick this off or screw it off. Then inside right here you have a little funnel that you will attach on the hose. So I will show you how this is done. So take a little bit of the electrical tape that you previously put on. If I can just find the opening. You don't have to take away all of it, because then the steel braided line would just split up. And this line is a bit more sensitive than the rubber one that we used previously. So a bit of the tape off, then push on the fitting, which is pretty easy. Then you can remove the rest of the tape, because now it doesn't do anything if it splits up. Actually it's supposed to split up right now. So if it doesn't, you just take a small like screwdriver or something, just push it in between so it splits up a little bit all around. Then you take the little funnel piece and push this on, and this is pretty much the same as on the other one, except that it seats against the Teflon piping inside. So make sure it sits. Then you just take the AN fitting and just press it in. So it sits like that. I will show you a close-up. here you can see how they are against each other right here. So now you just push this on and start threading it on by hand first, and then use a tool. Then you have a real tight and strong connection right here. So now this will attach on the side of the turbo. So we start with a 90-degree bend. So now we are just gonna thread it on lightly, because now we are going to test fit how long the line needs to be and approximately where it should be routed. So I want this to go inside of the exhaust manifold, and this is going to be on the back side of the cylinder head. So I don't want it to lay on top of the exhaust manifold. I want it to go down below, but just to get an approximate measure. And it will attach with this special construction that I told you about before. We have a banjo bolt that will attach in the cylinder head, 8 mm for the line to the intake manifold and the throttle body. Then we will have an AN6 on the hose right here that we could attach, and it's really tight behind everywhere, so I will install everything together like this into one piece together with the line, and then I will just thread in the banjo bolt, because that will be easy accessible from the side. So I just take a piece of marking pen and see where I'm at. So I make the marking a couple of extra millimeters extra, because a little bit of slack on the line is always good compared to no slack at all. It shouldn't be too tight. So now I will show you the right or the better method to use when cutting these lines. So first we follow the marking, we put on some electrical tape and try to get it as tight as possible. Just a couple of laps around it. Like so. Then I borrowed this cutter from my neighbor who uses it to cut like wire. There are big ones and there are smaller ones, and there are specific tools to cut like lines and steel braided lines like this and wires. And when you cut it with this, you won't get any like dirt or debris into the cut, which is very preferable when using it for like fuel lines or oil water lines. So we just put this on and then make the cut. Put this extra line away. And we will do the same as the other time around. Use just a tool to get it a little bit rounded after the cut. Then remove a little bit of the electrical tape so we can get the fitting over it. There's always a problem finding the opening for some reason. Like so, not all the way. Then you split this apart. And then you just slide this over. It's really not too hard. It was a lot worse on the rubber line that I used previously. Then we take the rest of the electrical tape off. Like so. And the braiding always like opens up by itself. So we put this funnel in, make sure it's seated correctly, and push in the fitting. Then start to thread it on. This is super easy and it's really fun to work with, because if you don't have like a hydraulic company right beside you or close to you, this is an easy way. It's quite expensive, but it's really fun to make the lines yourself, and you get them straight away. You don't have to wait on anyone making them. And this will also make it a lot easier to work on the car later on. You just screw on and off all the connections, and there are special like wrenches for AN fittings if you don't want to like damage the surface on them. I'm not too worried about that. Make sure it sits tight. Do a little test, drag it out, and it sits really tight. So now we are going to go ahead and just install it into the car. So now the wires are all hooked up to the turbo. So I hope I have planned everything out so they don't interfere with anything. But I think it looks quite good. It's really hard to see down below, but you can see it in there. And now I think I should continue with installing the intake manifold together with the gasket and everything. So that is finally mounted. Then I will start with the crankcase ventilation, try to hook that up and put on the belt again. And I think we are on the right path right now. It feels really good, so we will see what the next issue will be, because there will be something. what I call progress. Now things start to happen, like injectors plugged in. This is just such a surreal feeling when things are in their place and it starts to be connected. But it's been a while since I disassemble everything. I know that this is for the direct ignition cassette. Can't really remember what this other connector is from. And I know that these two connectors are for the O2 sensors, one for each. And then I have this connector also, and it's starting to get really late, so I can't get my head around it where this should connect, but anyway, I think we will figure it out. Belt back on. So now I think we should continue with the things around the crankcase ventilation and get those parts installed as well. So I sat down here just for a second to take a thumbnail of the build, and I just realized that I put in so insanely many hours in this build, but it will be so worth it in the end, because right now it looks like a freak, and that's really what I want. I think this will be pretty insane. So as it looks right now, you really get the vision of how I imagine the concept of this build. So let me show you what I'm looking at. So this looks insane. So right now I have installed the crankcase ventilation. I have attached the hose that goes to the throttle body. You can see them right there. And I have also installed all the hose that goes to the radiator. One right here and the other one down there between everything. I'm getting really tired. But there are always more stuff left to do, but you could really get a feel for the concept. This is not final, it will not sit like this when it's done. But you see that all the 3-inch piping will fit. And I think this solution will be pretty cool with the air filter, because on the OG95 you just lift off the grill and then you will have access to everything right here. And it will get a pretty good like splash protection where it sits right now. Normally on the OG95 the open filter will sit down here. So this will be a lot better, a lot of air will flow through here. So here is, I can decide a little bit. I could make this shorter and get the filter up here, right behind the grill. I think that would be quite a good solution. Then we will have free flowing airstream through the intercooler and to the radiator. And yeah, it just looks so menacing. But what's left to do is to attach the crankcase ventilation. This big anaconda will fit to this pipe right here. So I got these fittings from DO88. So this will sit right here, and then I have another one that will be connected to the magnetic valve on the other side, and that will be installed into the wastegate. And this bend right here will of course not be like a 90-degree bend right here, and it will not look like that down below. I just put it in to get the concept, to see how everything will look. So this will be routed up here and then to the intake manifold. It will just be so sick. And then I will make a reinforcement bar that will go from this bracket right here to the engine, so when the engine revs and it torques, it won't fall over, so it will stay stable, because we're aiming for quite some power right here. So that's it for this video, guys. The camera's battery is flashing red and my brain is flashing red as well. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Please subscribe to the channel, it means a lot to me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!